Hi, I'm Carmen Deedy, and this is my daughter, Lauren Deedy, and she is going to tell you about her new book, New Shoes for Leo.
So, New Shoes for Leo is something you know all about because, besides the fact I made you read all my drafts, it's based on growing up in a Cuban household, an immigrant household, a refugee household, and the boxes that we would make to send back to Cuba. So,
Yeah.
you remember all this extremely clearly, I'm sure.
Yes, we did. We made many of those. Even when Lauren was very little, she helped to make them. Her grandmother would prepare the boxes every month, sometimes
Mhm.
twice a month, but usually it was once a month.
We drive out to Hostel, to where my abuelitos lived. And my abuela Esther, she would kind of transform my mom and Tia Terci's old bedroom into just the battle station, where she would have each box, laid out, and then each stack of all the different items. And she would have two lists, one for her to keep track of everything that this family needed, and another list to put into the box so that when they received it, and inevitably some items had been siphoned off by communist officials because that's how the world works, they would know what was missing and what to ask to be sent again. Meanwhile, me and my cousins would go through these just big boxes full of black and white photos. And while they worked, we'd interrupt and be like, who's this? Who's that? Is this box going to this person? Is this person, are they in the United States? Are they in Cuba? Will we ever meet them? And that's when we would learn about our family. And we would learn about family who sometimes had already passed, or sometimes were still with us. Sometimes they were in Cuba. Sometimes they say, oh, they came last year. You haven't met them yet, but you will. It was always a different story, but it was always a story and always important.
And I actually have a photograph of some of the people when my mother was growing up, some of the women in our family who tell stories. So in this photograph, the woman who's seated with the scarf around her neck and little round glasses is my great grandmother, Carmela Gonzalez Gonzalez, and she was a writer. She wrote for the newspaper in Unión de Reyes, there's part of the Havana. She wrote on theater and art, but she always loved to write.
For me, as I was thinking about Leo and how he has a family member who he builds affection for, they just never meet, I really thought a lot about my great grandmother, Ophelia. She was one of the person boxes would go to with medicine and food and just important things. And she lived until I was a young teenager.
Yeah.
She lived a very long life, but I was never able to meet her. But through all the stories about her and through some photographs, I always felt she was kind of the person I got my looks from.
She does look a
So,
lot like Ophelia. And
yeah.
my father looked like Ophelia, and I look like my father, and she looks like me.
Yeah. So it's like, even though we never meet through these monthly boxes and these monthly storytelling sessions, that love and that affection built regardless. So I feel like even though I never got to meet her, that I know her. And that's kind of the relationship I tried to show in my writing that is created between these two cousins. That maybe they'll never meet, maybe they will, but either way, they're building something.
And there's so many children around the world. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are that have relations in other countries, but especially if it's another child, like a cousin, a kid feels a connection to another kid. The fact that Leo figured out that there were all these things that they shared made them more than cousins. It made them it made them family.
I think a lot of children are in similar positions for various reasons. I've been lucky enough to take the book to a couple schools now, early copies, and I'll ask the kids, will you raise your hand if you have family in another country? And just I'll go, will you raise your hand if you send, boxes to another country? And then hand them go through, like, what do you send? And it can be everything from, oh, we send luxury items, to Mexico, to, I had in second school, I had a little girl from Iraq. She's like, oh, we send medicine too. We send medicine. And I was like, okay, this book is for you then.
I love that the story is the story that a child would understand. I love the poignancy and the humor in the story.
So, for children who are not from an immigrant background, or who might be from an immigrant background, but a different type of immigrant, where, they come from a country where there's no need to send boxes and they freely go back and forth, just a different experience. For them, I hope a couple things. One is that if they have friends or classmates, that it makes it easier to talk to their friends about that part of their life and what it's like having family and not maybe being able to go back to their home country. I also hope that for kids who, maybe don't have any connection at all with immigrant refugee communities, that they still respond to the overall message of family, learning about your family members and recognizing yourself as part of a community, and of learning to think about, do I really need this extra pair of shoes or whatever it is? Is this something that maybe I can think about giving away? And of course, I hope that all kids, not only are they eating their more vegetables, but they also just have a fun time reading the book and like it as a story and when it makes them smile.
Lauren, I'm so glad we got to talk about New Shoes for Leo. And I'm so excited, not only as a mom, but as a refugee. This is the kind of book I would have loved to have read as a child.